Hello, I'm Amelie and welcome back to my daily readings for the arts. If you haven't seen my previous videos, go have a look. Remember, I am taking requests, so let me know if there's anything you would like me to read and I shall read it. Now, because I managed to forget to do an upload yesterday, I am doing 2 readings today. First, I will be reading Search for My Tongue by Sujata Bhatt. I forgot to mention that Search for My Tongue was a request from my friend Sophia, so thank you, Sophia. You ask me what I mean by saying I've lost my tongue. I ask you, what would you do if you had 2 tongues in your mouth and lost the first one, the mother tongue, and could not really know the other, the foreign tongue? You could not use them both together, even if you thought that way. And if you lived in a place you had to speak a foreign tongue, your mother tongue would rot and die in your mouth until you had to spit it out. I thought I had spit it out. But overnight, while I dream, Munai hutuke aki jib ake pasha, Metunki nakiche parantu ratre subnama mari pasha pachi aveche. Funi je mari pasha and mari jib modama kele che. Funi chem mari pasha mari jib modama pakeche. It grows back, a stump of a shoot. Grows longer, grows moist, grows strong veins. It ties the other in knots. The bud opens. The bud opens in my mouth. It pushes the other tongue aside. Every time I think I've forgotten, I think I've lost the mother tongue, it blossoms in my mouth. Apologies if any of my pronunciation was off in the middle section. That was actually in Gujarati language. Again, I might have mispronounced that. If anyone speaks it, feel free to give me some tips, but I did try my best. Second, I will be reading an extract from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which is the first Harry Potter book. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4, Privet Drive, were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large moustache. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbours. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Mrs. Potter was Mrs. Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as un-Dursleyish as it was possible to be. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbours would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they had never seen him. The boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dudley mixing with a child like that. When Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull, grey Tuesday, our story starts. There was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest that strange and mysterious things would soon be happening all over the country. Mr. Dursley hummed as he picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mrs. Dursley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his chair. None of them noticed a large tawny owl flutter past the window. At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye but missed, because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the walls. "Little tyke," chortled Mr. Dursley as he left the house. He got into his car and backed out of number 4's drive. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something peculiar. A cat reading a map. For a second, Mr. Dursley didn't realise what he had seen. Then he jerked his head round again. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Privet Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. What could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of the light. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. It stared back. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the sign that said Privet Drive. No, looking at the sign. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. Mr. Dursley gave a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. He drove towards town. He thought of nothing except a large order of drills he was hoping to get that day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, I will be doing these for all of the remaining days of August. So keep watching. And please donate if you can. My Just Giving page is linked down in the description. Thank you and goodbye.